Cassata.
Oh my God.
La
Caponata.
cassata. Crema di ricotta.
Ciao. No, crazy. Ciao, this is Strano, an independent podcast supported by Spreaker Prime. My name is Ame, and I always felt weird, strange, my entire life. This podcast is my journey looking for other people that feel or felt like me or that can at least give me an interesting point of view on that. Doing this podcast, I get the chance to talk with people that do things that I like, people that play in bands that I love, and today's episode makes no exception. Today's guest sings in a cover band, the only cover band I love. Over the years, this band has featured, and in some cases still features, members of Foo Fighters, the Ramones, NoFX, Legwagon, Strung Out, and more. They have the unique ability to turn any song into a punk rock anthem. They used to go by Me First and the Gimme Gimmes, but now they're called Spike and the Gimme Gimmes. My guest today is Spike himself, Spike Slawson. Welcome back to the
Thank you.
show. It's great to have you back.
Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure. Yeah, we were just saying that the last time we talked, it was September 2020. And I gotta say, what a time to be alive. The world has gone crazy. So many things have changed. And I'm, of course, referring to the fact that Me First and the Gimme Gimmes changed their name into Spike and the Gimme Gimmes. I mean,
Yes.
how crazy is that?
It feels normal, actually. It feels completely sane. In an insane world, we have to make, sometimes even the insane can seem sane.
So the first thing I always ask all of my guests on my podcast is, have you ever felt weird, strange, different from the other people? And I already asked you this the last time, so I'm going to ask you, do you feel stranger than 5 years ago?
No, I don't. Because I've always felt strange, and now the world feels strange. And so now I realize, for example, people tell you when you choose to be a musician, or maybe you default to being, music as your job or as one of your jobs, that it's a poor choice, that maybe you're not thinking things through enough or you're being childish. But after COVID, and even after 2008, with the financial crisis, and with technology taking everybody's jobs, like my job is pretty good compared to everybody else.
True.
So I don't feel insane anymore, or like I made bad choices necessarily. And I don't want to seem pretentious, although I sometimes do. But what am I trying to say? Art and creation, music, whatever falls under it, image, vision, there's no money without it. Even if all you care about is money, there is no money without it. That is the spark that creates movement and motion and inspires people to work and to collaborate, is vision. Even if it's not artistic vision, even if it's corporate vision, but somewhere it's somebody is being creative, and whether or not you and I consider it art, it is. So, no, I feel in a very abnormal, absurd world, I actually feel fairly normal.
Let's talk about music.
Yeah.
So tell me some of your first memories of music. I mean, anything, like any detail, image, smell, random sound, anything that comes to your mind.
Yeah, my mom shared, it's very important for her to share movies with me at a very young age. So when I was 12, I saw Amarcord.
Wow.
And I saw the Tabakaya, which made a big impression. That blew my mind as much as any record did. But she showed me Midnight Cowboy, Easy Rider.
Classics, wow.
Fanny and Alexander when I was much too young to see it. But I appreciate that education. She also, at a much earlier age, made sure that I was exposed to the Beatles and the Rolling Stones and the Yardbirds, which are still three fundamental musical groups in my life. And I don't know, maybe I love American music more than I love English music, but I think they did too, because they're making American music for them. Maybe not the Beatles are a little Anglophile, but the Rolling Stones and the Yardbirds were making American music, and like convincingly too. Convincingly enough that Keith Richards played with Chuck Berry. But yeah, those are my first memories of Abbey Road, listening to Abbey Road over and over again
Wow, yeah,
on road trips.
What a record.
Yeah. Like a record that was an entire experience. And I feel like artists and labels have underestimated the value of having a record that is an experience from the beginning to the end of the record. You enter a different world, and you return changed somewhat, even a little bit, when you end the record. And we made it easy for Napster and iTunes because we made records. You only need 3 good songs, and that was the business model, and it was not a sustainable business model. And then now we have what we have now, which if you earn money making music, it feels like piracy. It feels like you're a fucking pirate, because it feels like you were able to earn money when somebody wasn't paying attention, is what it feels like. Yeah. And it's a stressful feeling, but then at the same time, that's life.
Let's talk about the Gimme Gimmes. So I can't help quoting movies that I love on my podcast. And The Gremlins is for sure one of the movies that I love.
Excellent movie, Joe Dante.
Yeah, great movie. So The Gremlins had those 3 famous rules, do not expose to bright lights, do not let them get wet, and no feeding after midnight. So what would the 3 rules be for your band, the Gimme Gimmes?
Okay, don't leave your capicola around CJ Ramon, because he will eat all of it. In fact, one time he left one slice because he felt guilty. And you get to oh shit, he wrapped it up and left one slice. I don't know. Don't leave your Guinness. Number 2, don't leave your Guinness around CJ Ramon. What else? It's all CJ Ramon, man.
It's really just him.
He's the problem. Yeah, that's about all I could think of. What else do we not do around CJ Ramon?
Like, can you eat after midnight, or is it going to be a problem?
Yeah, but don't leave your peanut butter around Spike. Crema d'arachidi, man. That's like, it's crack for me.
Yeah,
Especially
same.
the trashy English, the American, like Skippy, and Jif.
Same here.
Oh,
I'm a peanut butter monster.
Yeah, el cucchiaio, right?
Yeah.
Fucking.
It's so hard to resist. I get it.
And ogni tanto, you know what I mean?
Yes, of course.
And it's the combination. It's a deadly combination, because it turns me into a fiend, and all I want is peanut butter.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I get it. So I
could be problematic too.
Tell me about a weird close encounter you had with a band or an artist you love while on tour, if something comes to your mind. Or maybe someone you hate, or...
No, you know what? We don't run into the only quote unquote celebrities that we run into are people that we know from our milieu, right?
Or maybe someone a show you saw when you were younger, of a band you love, and you had a close encounter with someone from the band.
So I grew up in a town called Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Kind of a rough town through the years. It was a steel town, and then the steel contracts went to China and India and Japan, and predictable things happened in Pittsburgh. It was violent, but it was also very dark in a way that's hard to explain, because its whole identity was wrapped up in working dangerous jobs, for 12 hours a day. But that was the first place that I went to go see punk shows. In fact, the first show I saw was Black Flag and Saccharine Trust. and it was at a club called the Electric Banana.
Who was singing with that
Henry.
track?
Henry was
Henry
singing.
Rollins.
And it was Slip It In. And I remember, you want to talk about something that made an impression, the cover of Slip It In
Yes.
with the SWAT up, what a heavy fucking cover.
Yeah,
you know?
that's
like,
heavy.
It was hard for me to look at, you know?
Yeah, that's heavy.
At 14 years old, I went to go see them at a club, which at the time was out in the middle of nowhere. The front door is street level, but the back was on the top of a cliff, and it was on stilts.
I think you told me about this place last time.
Supposedly,
I remember the name.
Johnny Banana, who
Yeah.
Johnny Zarra, was the guy that ran the club, and he was kind of a heavy set dude, and he wore like silk shirts, open with a lot of gold chains. He wore sunglasses at nighttime.
Confident.
Yeah, and he had a 22
Okay,
caliber
that's
pistol.
why I was so confident. Yeah, that helps.
Absolutely. And he supposedly, he got the club because he didn't talk about the Pittsburgh mob. And they gave him a go-go club.
Deal.
And eventually somebody convinced him to do punk shows, all ages punk shows. And I think he just thought money.
Why
He was
not?
just trying to
Yeah.
get people to his club. And
And thanks God he did. So you got
absolutely.
the chance.
I got the chance to see
Yeah.
some bands. A lot of bands heard about the place and didn't because of his 22. Because he would underpay them, and if they would have a problem, he had a 22.
Yeah, you have to be ready to deal with that.
And he knew some nasty people in Pittsburgh too.
Yeah, you don't want to fuck with that.
No, you don't
for
fuck
sure.
with Johnny Banana. You didn't. But I saw one of the first shows that I saw there after that was a band called Ill Repute.
Oh, wow.
And they were from Oxnard, California, I think it was, or Ojai, Oxnard, Ventura area. And they were touring with another band called Scared Straight, who the singer's brother is actually on tour with us right now. And we talk about this. This is long before we ever knew each other, but they came to play a show in Pittsburgh. It was a great show. I was talking to the singer of Ill Repute, and it was the first time I had ever talked to somebody in a band. And that was the night that they got everything they were traveling with stolen.
Oh, shit.
Because they parked it in the wrong neighborhood of Pittsburgh. And supposedly, as legend has it, people would come to Pittsburgh, other bands, and they'd be sitting on somebody's front porch or something, and they'd see somebody in an Ill Repute t-shirt or a Scared Straight t-shirt, and they'd say like, boy, I didn't know, man, punk is really huge here in Pittsburgh. Like,
No,
not so much.
not the case.
No.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, cool story.
Well, the club itself, if not a show or an encounter, I mean, there was an encounter with the guy, but that club itself was it was such a unique way to experience music and this weird like youth movement that already at that time was, 8 years old, 7, 8, 9 years old, depending on, when you put a start to it. And I didn't appreciate it, obviously, when I was living there as a teenager. You don't appreciate anything. And the grass is always greener on the other side. I remember I would see flyers from San Francisco, where I would eventually move, and Los Angeles. And there would be 10 bands that you wanted to see. And it was like $5 or $3 or something like that. And we would pay $7 if the band showed up.
Yeah.
Because sometimes he would lie about the band's coming, or they would have a phone call. They'd say we're not coming, and he wouldn't tell anybody. So you'd pay $7 to see 2 local bands.
Yeah.
And
that sucks.
But in hindsight, I wouldn't have it any other way. It was such a unique experience to see. I guess you'd call them punk shows in an old steel town. It was a really strange and unique and special experience.
Cool. Yeah, sounds good. Sounds interesting.
It wasn't easy.
Yeah.
There to
but
be
very formative, I guess.
Yeah, well, but not easy.
Not easy.
You could get beat up at any time. The singer of one of the local bands was actually shot in the head in front of the venue.
Shit.
It grazed his head.
Okay.
But didn't kill him. At another venue, somebody brought a human head,
Oh
an
yeah,
actual
I
human
remember
head
this.
to a show in
Yeah,
Pittsburgh.
you told me that. That's
Yeah.
crazy. That's crazy. Okay, yeah, that's crazy.
Luckily, that was not a formative experience for me.
Yeah, okay.
Because I don't think I was at that show, but
Okay.
I know a lot of people who were at that show and saw the head. It was in like a plastic garbage bag, and he was just kind of showing it to people, like, "Hey, check it out," you know.
Wow.
And it
That's
was
crazy.
obviously real. It had
That's
obviously like
crazy.
happened recently, you know.
Yeah. Oh my God. That's disgusting, and I'm so sorry for the person who lost that head.
Yeah.
Somehow. So if you could be invisible for 24 hours, what would you do?
I would do. Man, what would I do? God, I have zero imagination for this kind of thing, man.
No, it's hard.
I live
It's
such a
hard.
great, I think, like kind of a blessed life. So I don't think of things that I wish.
Like when I was younger, I would probably have said like I want to go into a record store and steal every record that I want. But now I would feel like shit if I
Yeah,
do that,
man, because
they're gonna close the day after that. So-
right, and they're already gonna close.
Yeah,
We
so,
were
I
in
mean-
record stores yesterday, like. He's like, you can't charge too much or they won't buy it. You can't charge too little
Yeah.
or you won't survive.
Yeah.
And it was funny because he did it right at the beginning. As soon as we walked into the record
Okay,
store, we're
yeah.
like, this cat wants money, right? Like,
Yeah, that's
he's
what-
not going to give us free records, I
Yeah.
guess. And he told us about how difficult Russians were, and a French guy who got a whole pile of records but wanted like a deal, like €1 per record or something like that.
No.
But
Yeah, so that's not what I would do.
no, I wouldn't
So-
steal records. I guess I wouldn't steal anything.
I mean, I feel like if I only like shut down my phone for one day, it would feel like I was invisible. Actually,
that's-
I'm thinking about it now with you. I mean, that's the feeling I get when I shut it down for one day.
Yeah, maybe I'd just go like sit by a river and relax. You know?
Right? Yeah, that's
Yeah.
what I was thinking about now.
I can't think of anything right now, and if I were invisible for 24 hours, there's no reason I'd be able to imagine anything better than I can think of right now. God, what would I do? Because like teleportation is different, you know.
Yeah.
Like if I
Well,
could teleport, I'd go. You know.
Let's talk about that. I like teleportation or the idea of that at least. So tell me, what would you do if you could like use teleportation for one day?
I'd go. It's predictable, man. I'd go back to Catania because it's one of my favorite cities in the world.
Really
or
cool.
Pittsburgh, my hometown, just to
Different
see
places.
friends. Yeah,
Pretty
but
different places, yeah.
very different place, but a similar size.
Uh-huh.
Catania is a very manageable size, even though it has so many different elements. You could cross one street and it feels like you're in a different city, you know?
Yeah. You recorded a live show at a Quinceanera titled Blow It at Madison's Quinceanera.
Yes.
If you could have your own Quinceanera and invite any three bands, dead or alive, to perform, which bands would you pick?
Man, the Saints. I would pick the Saints. I don't know.
It has to be the Beatles. I mean,
Well, the Beatles, but
or not.
it's too cliche. Maybe definitely the Saints. The Gun Club, maybe. Who else? I don't know. The Easy Beats. That's very Australian
Cool.
oriented.
I mean, would be a
but-
hell of a Quinceanera.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah, absolutely.
Pretty crazy. I love it. So let's keep the number 3. I'm gonna ask you 3 things you're grateful for today.
I'm grateful to be back in Italy, especially I'm the most boring tourist. You could take me to Esselunga or Iperkop, and I'm so fucking
Really?
happy.
Wow.
Yeah, because your produce and your food is so good. Like people here take it for granted.
Yeah, you're so right. That's
that you
true.
have non-governmental organizations that control the quality and like the baseline quality and purity of the food. You really take that kind of stuff for granted. And if you went someplace like the States, you would see just how shitty it can be. And then you pay 3 or 4 times as much for shit that's not as good. You know, certainly in California, I'm blessed to be traveling. I'm blessed to not be in the States right now because I would be outside if I was in the States right now. It's not.
Pazzesco, mi fa impazzire questa roba. Now is June 2025 because I'm not sure when this episode is gonna be out. So.
Right. I'm grateful not to be home right now. Because my home, it feels like I'm going back to a different home when I do go back. I'm grateful to go to the island of Sicily at the end of this tour.
Nice.
And sit in the water for 2 weeks.
Sounds great. So it's three.
It's going to be very hot, but
it's going to be lovely.
That's what the Mediterranean is for. You can see straight to the bottom.
Lovely.
Yeah.
And the food is crazy in Sicily.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Cassata.
Oh, my God.
La cassata. Crema di ricotta.
Ciao. No, crazy. Yeah.
I'm grateful for that.
Yeah, I bet.
I'm grateful for ricotta di pecora. It's one of the greatest things ever invented.
And ricotta di pecora is grateful for you because you're going to be there to eat it.
Oh, yes, I am.
So last thing I'm going to ask you is suggest a song, a book, and a movie. They don't have to be your favorite because favorites are impossible to pick, but just stuff you enjoy, or maybe stuff you've been listening to today or the other day, or a book you're reading.
This is one of my favorite covers, and it's fucking Australian because they're almost like Americans because they are like trashy hillbillies like Americans are. So they like when they do rock and roll, for some reason, it's more convincing than when other people do it. Like an essential American art form, but they manage to make it sound convincing.
Yeah.
But the Decoys, and it's a cover of, I think it's a cover of a band called the Roulettes, but it's the Decoys doing Bad Time, and it's great. You can only find it on YouTube. It's not on iTunes or anything like that. But if you look it up on it's the letter D hyphen Coys, Coys, and it's called Bad Time or Bad Times. Great. I forget. It's an excellent song.
We'll check it out.
Yeah,
for sure.
And then Sha Sha, The Wine-Colored Sea, which is a bunch of short stories, but they're excellent. And the way he writes is just very easy to read, right? Like, it doesn't feel like you're reading words. It just feels like you're experiencing something. And a movie?
Yeah, or a series. Could also be a series.
Australian. I got to go Australian again. Mr. In Between is something that everybody should see because it takes the tools of The Sopranos and Breaking Bad, where it was the first time I was looking at my TV and thinking my TV is judging me and criticizing me and criticizing my behavior and attitudes. And this does that. It does the same thing as Breaking Bad, where you think, like, how are they going to have a second season? Because it's so reckless that it seems like they're destroying the narrative. But this one goes even further than Breaking Bad and attacks especially the male ego and especially our notion of chivalry. So yeah, Mr. In Between, I would recommend seeing.
Great. So Spike, thanks for being on my show again. Thanks for talking. It was a pleasure as always.
Thank you. Thank you very much. You're Strano and I'm a straniero.
Yes, you are.
Like Nugenia says. Listen to Nugenia too. Italo disco, but modern.
And thank you for listening to this episode. If you enjoyed it, hit the like button, the subscribe button, and share it with your friends and loved ones, and why not, with your enemies as well. Check out the other episodes, there's so many of them. I've been talking with a lot of amazing people like Bill Stevenson from The Descendants and Black Flag, Eric Melvin from NoFX, Laura Jane Grace from Against Me, Joe Lally from Fugazi, Ned Rustin from Title Fight, Daniel Yemin from Painted Black, Lifetime, and Kid Dynamite. Go check them out. Ciao.